Welcome. I'm Rachel Siegel, the Director of Strategic Programs at Illuminate. Welcome to our Crown Jewel Conversation Series. Thank you for joining us today from all over the world. Our hearts continue to be heavy today as the war in Israel continues. It is deeply personal to us as 25% of the women that we support who are in our network of Jewish women leaders are living in Israel and currently on the front lines of supporting their constituents as well as living and working there. Illuminate is a catalyst for gender justice and social innovation. We invest in the leadership of Jewish women social entrepreneurs who are devoting their lives to tackling society's most pressing issues affecting women and other marginalized communities in the United States, Israel, and around the globe. Each year, we select 10 extraordinary Jewish women leaders. We call them Jewels, Jewish entrepreneurial women executive leaders, to take part in the collective. This cohort-based leadership advancement program fosters connections, encourages partnerships, provides resources, and a curriculum that is tailored to meet their needs. This enables the leaders to maximize their impact. Our global network of changemakers is now 50 women strong. Illuminate is also dedicated to educating women philanthropists, as we are today, about emergent social issues and making impactful investments to support Jewish leaders working for social change. Philanthropists of all financial capacities are welcome to participate, no matter where they are physically located. We believe that the integration of activism and philanthropy is essential to creating social change. When you support Illuminate, you not only support 50 organizations run by phenomenal women, you are part of a movement. Together, we are advancing a deeply feminist response to global social challenges and creating a bright future together. Our conversation today will allow you to get to know one of the incredible women in this movement. Donna Talmi is the Executive Director of Yahel, Israel Service Learning, which she founded in 2007. Born in England and raised in the Netherlands and Israel, Donna started her career as a tour guide in Israel. She was an educator at the Teva Learning Alliance and a teacher at the Florence Melton School. In 2002, Donna led her first service learning trip with the American Jewish World Service, where she later joined the staff. Donna holds a BA in Israeli Studies from Bar-Ilan University and an MSW with a focus on community organizing and group work from the University of North Carolina. She currently serves on the board of Atzum Justice Works and the Keshet Pluralistic and Democratic School in Zikron Yaakov. Please write any questions that you have in the chat and we will do our best to incorporate them if time allows. To begin the conversation today, I'm pleased to introduce the immediate past president of Illuminate, Rachel Weinstein.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I'm going to apologize in advance if there's any background noise. I'm going to try and keep myself muted when I can. There's some construction, and for those of you who live in New York, you know it's unavoidable. But what I love about this time and space is that all of you can zoom in from all over the globe. And I see we have Shoshana here who is zooming in as far as Uganda, and thrilled to have this opportunity to talk with you, Donna, about the work that you do. I know some of us were very lucky to see you in the flesh last week when you were in New York, and you gave us some briefings on what's happening in Israel, but it's so great to have this time to really let you talk a little bit more about your leadership, your journey, the philosophy of what Yahel does and all of that, so that we can sort of get the depth and breadth of everything that you do. So we're going to just dive right in. And I'd really just like to start with your background. I mean, you're a global citizen, as it were. And I'd love to hear sort of what about your personal journey led you to your professional life.
Sure. I'll start and say thank you so much for having me. I feel like I've been in the Illuminate kind of community for the last week and a half with 2 events in New York and now this, and it's just so heartwarming to be here. Also, I was just on another webinar with students and all of their cameras were off. And it's so lovely to see smiley faces and to actually see who I'm talking to and to recognize quite a lot of the women here. So it's really, really lovely to be here. How did I get to here? I'll start with saying that I never thought I would start a nonprofit. Really, like it was not on my to-do list. It's not something that I ever thought I would do, but life kind of has its ways, right? So as Rachel said in my bio, I was born in England. I lived in Holland for 10 years. I came to Israel when I was 11. My parents are Israeli. They are musicians, which is why we moved around so much. But I grew up in a lot of different places, and I think that in some way put me in a place where I see what it's like to be Israeli, but also not Israeli, right? Like to kind of be that bridge. And I found myself over the years very much being that bridge and really understanding also the cultural differences and the different ways of being in the world. So I think that that's a big piece of kind of what brought me to doing what I am doing. I also, as again, like, not to repeat the bio, but I think a foundational piece for me was really working at AJWS. And through them, I was exposed to this methodology of service learning, which we can talk about more later, but the bottom line being how to build thoughtful volunteer opportunities that are really, really helpful to community members and are also very impactful for the volunteer themselves. I will say that I am a very deep believer in volunteering. I think it's one of the most beautiful ways that we can show up in this world. I actually saw a really interesting Netflix series yesterday that was actually talking about how volunteering contributes to longevity, which I'd never heard before, but apparently, kind of being engaged and meeting people and being physical. And so it has many other advantages that I have never even thought about. But I really feel like it's a great way to kind of engage with the world. So when I did these programs with AJWS, it really opened up a door for me. And at the time we were taking young people to Honduras, and I saw how well it was done, how it was impactful to the volunteers and the community members. And then we came back to Israel, and two major things happened. And I'm sorry for those who heard me last week if this is a repetition, but two major things happened. One was that people started asking me, can you do similar stuff in Israel? Can you come to Israel and do in-depth volunteer work? Not like a couple of hours of, doing something here or there, but really deep community-based work. And I realized that there's a bit of that, but that there's room for more. The second thing that happened was that I had a growing number of alumni from those programs, and they were young progressive Jews, and we're talking 20 years ago. And some of them, not all of them, but some of them wouldn't touch Israel with a 10-foot pole. They had a feeling of having a very strong social justice identity, and Israel was not where they were going. And that for me was very worrisome, because I didn't need them to make aliyah, but I did want them to be in a conversation with me. Just like, all these women here on this call, right, are in a conversation, care about Israel in this way or the other. But and I felt that for some of them, they just didn't have the right door to go through. Not everyone wanted to do birthright. Even those who did do birthright felt that it didn't really touch what they care about, which is justice work. So I felt like creating these opportunities where people can come and be really immersed in the community and really understand local needs and contribute to them is a way to bring people to Israel. So it's been 14 years. It's been about 700 alumni in our long programs. We have many more that come through our short programs, but in our kind of immediate and long programs, we count about 700 alumni. And I'm very blessed to be able to do the work.
Well, we're very lucky to have you doing it. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically about what that work is and what some of your programs are?
Sure. So we have different kinds of programs. What I'm telling you now is regular year, not pandemic or war or anything like that. We can talk later also about how that shifted. But in the regular year, we have different kinds of programs, anywhere ranging from 1 day to 9 months. So our 9-month fellowship is for people who are 22 to 30, so post-college. If anyone here has, really strong and wonderful folks, then they should tell them about our fellowship. It's based in 3 different cities. It's based in Lod, in Rishon, and in Haifa. They come for 9 months. They do all kinds of volunteer work, from working in schools and after-school programs, community centers, youth at risk, the elderly, working with different nonprofits. So it's really a very wide range of possibilities. And then they also learn with us. They learn Hebrew for those who want. They learn Arabic. They learn about the nonprofit field in Israel. They learn about Judaism, social justice. So there's a very rich kind of learning component. And each one of our cities actually has also a different focus. So the Lod City Fellowship has a focus on shared society because it's a mixed city. Rishon has a focus on immigration and migration because we work largely with the Ethiopian Jewish community. And then actually our Haifa program focuses on gender equity, and we work with a lot of different women's organizations in Haifa. So that's our flagship 9-month program. Then we have mid-length programs. That could be a month long, that could be 2 months long. Some of them are academic programs. So for example, we have a wonderful collaboration with UC Berkeley. Again, normal years. They bring students to us for 2 months. We have a program with the Rutgers School of Social Work. We have onward programs. So we have kind of those mid-length programs. And then we do shorter things. It can be a week long. It can be a day or 2. And those are usually within the context of another program. So for example, Camp Ramah may come here for a summer program and then do a day or 2 of service learning projects with us. So that's the range in a normal year, and things have very much shifted since the beginning of the war.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm a Romanic. I wish you were around when I was doing my summer in Israel.
Nice.
Loved
Nice.
that. Aside from the places where you have partnerships, so how are you recruiting your volunteers who are in that, like the fellowship category, the 22 to 30? How do you find, who are they and how are you finding them?
So first of all, they're from all over the world. We have in recent years put a real emphasis on having it very diverse. It started out being very North American, and realized that that's wonderful. And there's a lot of other people around the world. So this past year, we had people from 8 different countries, US, Canada, I think it was Argentina, Mexico, France, India, so very diverse. Jews and non-Jews for our fellowship. The majority are Jews, but not only. And that, again, for us is very intentional. I think it's really important that it's mixed. I think also, to be honest, some of the Jews, the young Jews that we engage, don't want to be in Jew-only spaces. Being very honest and transparent here. For some of them, it feels strange, and they like that it's diverse. And then what's the typecast? We usually kind of laugh. There's different types of typecast that come. There is the person who has been to Israel a million times and loves it and wants to come back, and give back. Some of them even say, I'm not going to serve in the army, but I want to give back. I have a strong connection. We have had over the years many people who are very much grappling with Israel, are not sure, how to understand it. Some of them might be coming from campuses that are super critical of Israel. And this is in some ways like their way to figure it out for themselves, to see things for what they are. We have people who are thinking about making Aliyah and want to have a good period of time where they live here and see what it's like. And then we also have people who want to do this kind of work, but for them, it's almost incidental that it's in Israel. So I'll give you an example. One of our board, we have alumni who are on our board. One of our board members, Becca, she's super great. She went to University of Michigan. She did a minor in, I think they have a minor in social justice studies or something like that. And she felt like she wanted to take that from the classroom to the field. She wanted to do social justice work. She had never been to Israel. She's Jewish, but had never been to Israel. Didn't really care much to come to Israel. And then she found us and she liked what we were doing, not necessarily where, but she's okay, you know, she's thinking about either going to Africa or to Israel. And then she ended up coming to Israel. She has since made Aliyah. She went back to the States. She's a lawyer, but she made Aliyah. She's now living in Israel. She works with asylum seekers in Israel as a lawyer. So that's like one story of these folks who like happened to come to Israel in some ways.
Amazing. You referred to it earlier. They're not just coming to do service and to volunteer, but they're doing, you, as you said, service learning. So tell us what that means to you, service learning.
Yeah, great. So a lot of people don't know that term, and we're like, what do you mean by service learning? And when I explain it, mostly what I say is that to me, service learning means doing service in a very thoughtful way and connecting it to learning and understanding that in some ways it's a cycle. So when you come and volunteer, it makes you curious. And that curiosity helps, you know, like pushes you in some ways to learn. And that learning might push you to then do the service in a different or better way. So I see these things as linked. I think that if you want to do impactful volunteering, first of all, you got to be trained, right? Like you can't just like in most situations, unless you're packing food, and even there, I would argue that you need to have some basic training, right? Like you have to understand a little bit how you're doing it, otherwise you're going to botch it. So there needs to be some training in terms of what you're doing. There needs to be contextual learning, particularly if you're doing more immersive work. You need to understand who is the population you're working with, right? So we work a lot, for example, with Ethiopian Jewish community. You can't just go into that community and start working if you don't understand their history, where they're coming from, what their value system is, and you know, and what their strengths are. You can come with so many stereotypes if you don't know that, and you know, and your work can be quite harmful. So there needs to be a lot of contextual learning. There needs to be values-based learning. When we do real service work, it confronts us with real ethical questions, right? Like you go, and again, I'm going back to the food piece, but you go into a soup pantry and you see people, and like it confronts you with, you know, I'm at a different place in my life, and what's my obligation? Should I be putting half of my salary to feed these people who are hungry? Right? Like it brings up a lot of questions in us. And I think that those are wonderful questions, particularly for young people, because they help them define who it is that they want to be. So connecting that to ethical Jewish learning, you know, and thinking about how does Judaism answer these questions, I think is phenomenal. And then the last piece in this service learning puzzle is reflection. So making ample time to reflect on what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it and how we want to do it better. So it's a bit of a more of a holistic way of looking at service, as opposed to you come, you volunteer, you leave. You know, we try and make it more than that. We try to imbue it with learning and with reflection and so forth.
Yeah, and from what I know from you, from having gotten to know you, you know, over time, there's a lot that goes into it before you take it to your volunteers, right? There's a lot about building relationships between you and your staff in these communities, and really understanding their needs without guessing or imposing what you might think that their needs are, right? Can you? I mean, that's the basis for trust and relationship, I would think, to making this all work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that for us, all of our programs, no matter their length, they're all built on partnerships. I live in Zichron Yaakov in Israel. It's a beautiful, wonderful place. We work, for example, in Lod. Who am I to say what Lod needs, right? Like, who am I to understand those needs? I need to have local partners. So we spend a lot of time finding the right partners, usually having more than, you know, one partner in the city. We have many different partners, and through them we understand both what the needs are, also how we can best answer those needs. Also, what are the changes in those needs? And in an ideal situation, we build partnerships in which we care about what they need, but they also care about what we need, right? Like it's a two-way partnership. So we've had so many relationships in these cities, some of which we've worked in some cities for 9 or 10 years. So at this point, if something happens, our partners take in our fellows or have them over for meals or for Shabbat meals or ask us what they need, or it's really reciprocal. And I think that there's something really important in that reciprocal relationship, because otherwise volunteering can be very top down or very condescending almost, right? Like with volunteering, you run the risk of being condescending because you're coming in and essentially, if you don't do it through partnerships, then you're coming in and you're assuming that you know what people need. So I think that that's really the key to how we like to do the work.
Yeah. And you're working with so many different communities and immigrants and shared society and as you said, volunteers from around the world. So what language are you using? Is it Hebrew, English?
English, yeah.
English.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they learn Hebrew, and by
Yeah.
the way, I just saw that one of the people on this call here is an alum of ours from 14 years ago, and that's
Oh,
really
fantastic.
exciting to see her
Oh,
there. Yes,
amazing.
maybe she'll say something later. But yes, our programs run in English. Also, think about the fact that our fellows and participants come from different places. So we make sure that everyone has English that's good enough to communicate within the group and to do the learning. And that's our language of the program. And then people learn a lot of Hebrew. So when when they're in their volunteer placements, they learn the little Hebrew that they have. But again, we won't place someone in a placement where we know that they have to have Hebrew, right? So that's going back to what you said before about how we spend a lot of time thinking about how to do this thoughtfully. A piece is also about how do you match volunteers? You can't just plug any person in any position. You need to make sure that they have the right language skills. You need to make sure that they have the right maturity to do the work. We work with so many different populations, as you said. We work with the elderly, with youth at risk, with people with special needs. Not everyone can work with any one of these populations. So it's a bit about, making sure that the match is right. I'm sure many of us here on this call have been in situations where we were placed somewhere, as volunteers, and it's just like, it wasn't a good fit. And then when it's not a good fit, then you don't feel good about yourself. You don't, you can't really contribute. So I won't say that 100% of the time, we do the matching perfectly, but we really try our best to make sure that people are in places where they can do meaningful work, but where they're also answering needs. And that's often like a balance, right? Because it's not only about what's good for the volunteer, it's very much also about what's needed. So you're trying to kind of play with that balance.
Right. That makes sense. You talked about yourself as a bridge builder, and obviously the work that you're doing through Yael is building bridges with the Jews in diaspora, particularly young people. What can you tell us about that relationship, and how has it shifted since October 7th?
The relationship with Jews from
Well,
around
just
the world.
about the role that you're having about this bridge, right? About being a bridge, and what, if anything, has changed since October 7th and over the last few months with this particular group, perhaps?
I think in some ways it's almost needed more. So it's interesting because it goes in different directions. On the one hand, I feel like there's a stronger desire on behalf of, particularly I'm in touch a lot with the American Jewish community, so there's a stronger desire to be part of what's happening in Israel right now. In my trip just last week in New York, I heard so many people saying, I'm curious what people think about this, but I heard a lot of people who were saying, I thought of myself as an American Jew, and now I understand that I'm a Jewish American. And a lot of what I am seeing when I speak to people is this gets shifted their understanding of the reality also. And so I'm seeing a desire to come here and be part of what's happening here. To be honest, I've interviewed people for some of our programs, particularly our fellowship. And I'm sad to say that I've heard quite a few young people who really are running away from anti-Semitism. I've heard a few people who said, we're just like ducking and waiting for the semester to be over in order for us to be able to go to Israel and be in a place where we're not afraid. So that's been heartbreaking to hear. But understandable. So I think that there is definitely kind of that piece of people needing to come here. And I'm also, a lot of the bridge building that I think that we've done over the years has actually been with people who have been more grappling with Israel. Believe that people who have been here a million times and have very strong ties are gonna always come. They don't, in some ways, they don't need Yahel. Like, I'd love for them to come, but there's many other ways for them to come. I'm concerned about the ones who are having a very hard time bridging their social justice identity with their Jewish identity. And I don't know yet where that's going to go. Like, that remains to be seen, because right now the people that we're getting coming on our program are like, staunch supporters of Israel. And I'm curious what will happen in the next few months with those that have a harder time.
Yeah. And we can talk about that in a minute, but I think you present to young people all different facets of Israel, not just, the current government policy of Israel. I mean, you're showing a lot of the rest of the work that's happening, not just by you, but a lot of our other jewels and a lot of other people in Israel. And I think that hopefully will speak to them in a way that will give them access that they're not currently getting. But over the last 3 months, I mean, you have done a lot. I mean, we read articles about how civil society has like jumped into action, and you were there, you were poised. This is already what you do. So you have been mobilizing volunteers. I know some people will have heard some of this last week, but for those who haven't, can you share how you've been mobilizing volunteers, and what are the projects you've been working on, and who are they and who you've been partnering with?
Yes, so I'll say not just actually volunteers, because we found ourselves doing a lot of other things as well that we never thought we would do. I'll start and say that on October 7th, when everything happened, our first concern was for the fellows that we had here. We had about 18 fellows in 3 different cities, and one of the cities is Rishon LeZion, which received so many rockets over the last 3 months. And on that day, there were a lot of rockets, a lot of sirens. So our first concern was really with them. And the first few days after it started, some people started leaving the country, and then we actually made a decision as an organization that we were going to suspend the fellowship, at least temporarily suspend it until we understand what's going on. So that was the first thing that happened. In that interim, in those, from October 7th and until October 10th, I think, like 3-4 days, we started getting a lot of questions from our alumni and our community. I think that we have 700 people who've spent time here, and a significant amount of time, and they were all asking us, what can we do? And we actually realized that in the first few days, foreign volunteers was not what was needed immediately, right? Like, that's not who is going to help. But we also realized that there were a lot of other needs emerging. So we decided to start a crowdfunding campaign, and we raised over 500,000 shekels, which for an organization like us was a ton. And we said from the beginning that we were going to give these funds, not going to Yahel, going straight to our partners and going straight to needs on the ground, particular needs that are not being answered by other larger organizations. So in the beginning, it was very much food related. There was a lot of need. We supported programs that were giving food to soldiers, to evacuated families. There a lot of food for the needy down south. We've been working a lot with the town of Ofakim, which is a little bit it's a little bit to the east of the Gaza envelope, but it's a town that's a development town. It's lower socioeconomic anyway. And it had about 54 people were killed on October 7th in Ofakim. It went through a lot. So they had just a tremendous amount of need for support. So we helped there. We helped with some of the families from Kfar Aza, from Be'eri, from some of the kibbutzim from the Gaza envelope, who in the first few days, and I would say even first few weeks, didn't receive anything. It took time for the government to step in. And imagine you went through hell, honestly, right? And you were taken out of your home, but your credit card bills are still there, and you still, right, you still need to pay for your mortgage. They had nothing. So we helped some of those families. We helped evacuate a family. That was something that I had never thought I would do. A family of 16 Ethiopian Israelis. They were in that same town of Ofakim. One of our partners called us and said, you got to help this family. They were on the street where everything happened. They saw it. They're traumatized. They need to get out. So we got them a hotel for a few days. We got them a bus. We got them food. And we just helped them. So it was all these really immediate needs that, honestly, Rachel, I never thought I would do this kind of work. It's not what I'm used to. We helped refugees and asylum seekers. Again, think about, I'm not talking about Ethiopian Jewish immigrants. I'm talking about asylum seekers who are not going to get support from the government right now. So if their town, if they're living in a town that's been evacuated, they're not going to be evacuated, right? Or if they lose their jobs, they don't have Social Security. So we were giving money to Bedouin women. So just like so many needs. I think a piece of it was just sitting and seeing all these needs and deciding how can we help? So that was the first piece that we did. We still have some of those funds. We're still giving them out. We just did a food project. I can tell you about it later. It was really interesting this week. So that's still happening. Second thing that happened was engaging volunteers. As you said, like that is our bread and butter. The first few weeks, though, we didn't have foreign volunteers here. And we also felt like we're not going to do a push to bring people from outside of Israel right now, but there's a need for volunteers. So we started working. This is really interesting for us. Started working with new immigrants. Usually new immigrants are on the receiving end, but we realized that they actually really want to be giving. They want to be volunteering. They just don't know how. They don't have the language skills. And you go into whatever group advertises volunteer opportunities, and they can't figure it out. Their Hebrew is not strong enough. And mind you, in the first few months, 1 out of every 2 Israelis was volunteering. Half of the population was volunteering. And and I think there's a reason for it. Volunteering gives you a sense of agency. It gives you resilience. It makes you feel that you are not a victim. You can step up and do. So they also wanted to step up and do. So for the first few weeks, we engaged between 20 and 200 new immigrants every week in agricultural volunteering, in food packaging, in whatever was needed. And it was tremendous. We now shifted it into working with a program of new immigrants over a slightly longer amount of time instead of episodic volunteering. But that was a tremendous thing that happened and that we never thought we would be doing. And the third thing that we did is now we have resumed our programming. So now our fellowship is back in action, much smaller, but we still have fellows here. On Sunday, we're opening another program, a 6-week program. We have hopefully in March a federation program with the Metro West Federation. We're working with other federations on shorter programs. We have summer programs, so now it feels like things are back in motion and we are slowly starting to see an increase in volunteering. And here again, we want to make sure that even though this is a crisis, we do this thoughtfully and we do this responsibly.
Well, it's amazing. And I'm sure it's creating community for everyone, right? Even people who are new to Israel, and especially those who are new to Israel, to give them that kind of community, which is
and think about the fact that these volunteers that were working, these new immigrants that were working with us from the former, from Russia, from the Ukraine, from Ethiopia, from Italy, from Spain, from US, all together. And then the common denominators, they're going and volunteering. So yeah, it was very special to see that.
I imagine that in 3 months, your organization has not exploded with new staff. I mean, how are you balancing your all of what you do on an ongoing basis? I mean, I'm guessing that didn't all get suspended. The needs are as great as ever, if not greater. And all of the special initiatives that you have created, in the wake of October 7th. How are you balancing that all?
I don't know.
You're not sleeping.
Uh, yeah, no, I actually am. I love sleeping. But I'll tell you, I'll add two other things to this mix. One is that one of our staff was called up to reserve duty, so he's been out, for the last little bit. And then the other piece that a lot of our staff, particularly in the beginning, had a very hard time. Almost all of us knew someone that was, killed or injured or whatnot. We have several staff who have past experiences and and I would say even, some kind of PTSD. And this was very hard for them. So it was hard for some of them, even in the first few weeks, to jump back into the work. And then on top of that, we did shift. The first few weeks we shifted, right? From like running a fellowship to all of a sudden giving out money, assessing needs, working with new immigrants in agriculture. So doing vastly different things. I think I'm very lucky to have a wonderful team and to have a team that's very familial. I don't know if I'm saying that right, like family, right? Like really people were there for each other. We also very quickly, we reorganized, so we changed our teams. Usually we have our teams based by program, but all of a sudden we reorganized. So we had a team that was taking care of the campaign, getting in the money, getting out the money. And then we had a team that took care of the volunteer projects. So we kind of rearranged how we were doing our work. And yeah, and then we also, I think we're very understanding when people needed to not be there for a day or again, I'm talking particularly the first few weeks. I think the first few weeks for all of Israel, all of Israelis, they were in shock.
Yeah.
Because there's everything that's happened, but then there's this sense of Israel having been violated and people feeling unsafe. And it took a while to step out of that. But I think, we did as best as we can. We had a lot of support from our board. The board was very helpful in figuring out how we recalibrate and what we do, and just also to care about us. So yeah, and I think also, luckily, it's not an organization that was born yesterday, right? We've been around for 14 years. We have the foundations, we have the partnerships, we have the board, we have the staff, we have the alumni. So many alumni were in touch with us and helping and caring. So I think all of those things together kind of made it possible for us to not sink, but to actually jump and do more.
Well, I'm glad. I know when you were talking about, I think it's in Lod, you have communities where Jews and Arabs are living side by side. How has that been since October 7th?
Yeah. So I want to give you actually some stories and examples not from Lod. We didn't resume our fellowship in Lod just because we didn't have enough fellows. So we were in other places. Had nothing to do with the makeup of the city, just more where fellows were going back to. But we've actually been involved here locally where I live in several different projects. So I have my Yahel hat, but I also have my hat here as being involved in an Arab Jewish community in my region. It's between what we call the Kalmel region. So it has Zichron and Faradis, which is an Arab town, and Jisr al-Zalqa, which is an Arab town. So this whole region, and we've created almost like a shared community, I would say. This didn't start now. This is just started maybe a couple of years ago. But interestingly enough, it's never been as active as it's been the last 3 months. I think there was a desire of people on both sides to come together, almost like, as a statement of we are the same middle. We are not extreme in any direction, and we are bound by the belief that we have no choice but to live together. So we did several meetups of people, Jews and Arabs together to speak about this. We did all kinds of joint projects. And then the place where Yahel jumped in is that we ran 2 volunteer days, Jews and Arabs together. The last one was this past Monday. Was actually at a school for kids with special needs in an Arab town. And Jewish and Arabs came together to work with these special needs to pack 75 food packages. Half of them went to Arab residents and half went to Ofakim in the south. So to me, now I know, that that's not what's happening everywhere for sure. And I don't want to paint, this like rosy coexistent picture. It's not like that, but this is also happening. And for me, it's been very inspiring. It's been very inspiring to actually connect now. And again, to connect around volunteering, to connect around doing good. Because really, it's very hard to find anything bad to say about packing food together for people in need. Do you know what I mean? Like we can come together around that. So it's a very basic, I think, bottom line that people can rally around. We've seen some similar things like that in Haifa also. I think in many places there is an understanding that, again, the Arabs within the boundaries of Israel are not going anywhere. Like, we're here to live together and we better figure out how to do it. That's my personal opinion. I know that there's many other opinions in Israel, but that's kind of what we're trying to drive forward.
Yeah, only asking you for your personal opinion. And,
Yeah.
However it is, I mean, I think creating opportunities for real meaningful connection, collaboration, relationship building on whatever scale, I mean, those are the baby steps, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's where we have to start. So I'm so glad to hear that's happening. I'm sure it's like probably impossible to even think about tomorrow. I mean, and to think beyond the current needs. But I mean, you've been running this organization for 14 years, and I'm sure before October 7th, you had a plan, a vision for where you wanted to go. I mean, what are you thinking about for yourself and for the organization going forward? Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we'll be past this critical moment.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. So if you had asked me in September, where do you see the organization going? I would definitely tell you, Rachel, it needs to grow. It can grow. And the places that I want to invest in are, a lot of it is in our academic programs. I think that the academic programs with universities are really smart. It's a great way to get young people here. It's also a great way to get young people who are grappling with Israel here, because there's something about coming within your academic institution and not within a Jewish institution that you might be afraid is trying to brainwash you. So I think it's very effective. And the relationships we've had both with Rutgers and with UC Berkeley have just been phenomenal. They're serious, they're for credit programs. So my hope was to grow those, and we had several universities in the pipeline and people interested in coming. That's not happening right now. Certainly not for the summer of 24. I hope that for 25, yes, but it was clear that we need to pivot from there. Right now, our direction, can you still hear me? I'm not sure if the connection is okay. Yeah, okay, great. Right now, we realize that we actually have a different role to play, because there is a desire of many people, at least this is what we're understanding, that in the months to come, there's a desire of many people to come and do service work in Israel. And we understand that we actually have a role to play in that. And so we are looking very much at actually expanding our capacity and being able to host many more volunteers, both through our programs, but also through other collaborations where we are doing more of the matchmaking, understanding the needs and matching it with groups, and then also giving that, the kind of the holistic framework of the learning around it. And we're really hoping to help hundreds, if not many more, people who want to come to Israel and do meaningful service work. So right now we're working on a plan. We hope that it will work, but we're hoping on a plan. We have a hub in Haifa, and we're hoping to expand that to 3 additional locations, to Jerusalem, to the south, and to the center, and have those volunteering hubs really be a place where any group or any company that wants to come and do meaningful service work talks to us, and we help them build that, and we help them make that happen, whether that's a day or a week or a month. I will say that for the most part, as you probably guessed, as far as I'm concerned, the longer people come, the more impactful it is. But I'm also understanding that not everyone has 9 months or 2 months. And even if they come for a week, I want to make sure, or even if they come for a day, I want to make sure that what they're doing is real work. I want to make sure that it answers a real need. I want to make sure that it's not harmful, and I want to make sure that they get some learning and context with it, and that it's deeper. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes, but that's kind of how we are envisioning the next year and a half.
You know, I think I can only speak for myself and those who I know, but I think people are thinking differently about how they want to show up in Israel, especially after this moment. And when all the people that I know that have visited since October 7th, they're all going to do this. They're all going to learn. They're all going to serve. And I'm wondering if it's the new way that the Jews in diaspora will spend their time in Israel, at least maybe not that first trip when you're getting all the culture and all the history, but like on the returning trips, I really do think that this is going to be a shift that you're going to see in a real place where you can provide that service.
Yeah, so I want to follow that up with a thought. I heard someone say that the other day, and it was really interesting for me to hear. This is a colleague who was talking about how after 1948, when the state of Israel was established, the major way in which North American Jewry was involved in building Israel was through philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was wonderful, and it's really important. And she was saying, I'm wondering if now there will be a shift, and it will be more about being here present and together rebuilding Israel. And I thought that was really moving and really interesting, because I think that if this situation has taught us anything, is that we are a mishpucha and we are in this together, right? So then, having this new way of engaging, which is really coming and being part of rebuilding, I think is a really interesting concept, and I hope it will happen.
I do too. There were a couple quick questions I wanted to throw at you from the chat before I bring us home. But one of the questions was around, first, what this program started 14 years ago. Is that when yeah. And you mentioned that you're working a lot, with Berkeley and Rutgers, and how you want to expand to other colleges. How important is the college credit component to the success of those programs? Is that what they're all looking for, or are they just wanting to come on a spring break kind of thing just because?
I think, it really depends. Some people are coming here and it's a real benefit for them that they get credit for it, but not all of our programs are for credit. So, other people come and do the work. I think for many people, it is helpful that they get credit, which is why I like this idea of doing it through the university. But I also think that a piece of coming through a university means that you're coming with your peers and people that you're then going back to, and spend more time with. Our UC Berkeley program also comes with a really interesting academic course on minorities in Israel with a faculty member. Actually a Druze Arab faculty member, and it's just fascinating. So people are coming and just really enjoying the course and the learning. And also just this invitation to look critically at Israel. I think some people are afraid of that, and I am not at all. I think if you love a place or a person for that matter, you got to look at them for what they are. You can't pretend away the things that are difficult. Then you choose what you do about it, and you choose how you take responsibility for it. But I find that has to be the foundation for a relationship. And if we want people to have a relationship with Israel, then we have to invite them here and and look at things in an interesting way. And I'll say one more thing, you know, to me, what's interesting here is also not just looking at the issues in Israel, but actually looking at the people who are making the change. Because I think that that's what's inspiring. And some of them are, you mentioned before, that you know, the other women that are in our Illuminate program. We've got some phenomenal social change leaders from Israel. And so to come and work with them, to work with Ela Alon, who, you know, who works on women's issues through a legal lens, or any of the other women, it's so inspiring to see. So it's partly about seeing Israel for what it is, but it's also seeing who are the change makers in Israel.
Yeah. Well, and that sort of brings me to my final question, which is about your participation in the collective and what it has brought to your leadership, and what those relationships have meant to you and how you've leveraged some of those relationships. I'd love to hear about your experience.
Yeah, so I talked about that also a little bit last week, but I've really loved it. Or still am. It in some ways surprised me, you know, because I didn't know that much when I joined the collective in the beginning. And I remember I said this last week also. I kind of thought that I'm gonna have to be on these Zoom meetings and they're late at night in Israel, and they've turned out to be really interesting, really well facilitated. And every time I just, you know, I sit, and for me, it's usually until like 8 p.m. But I learn new things. The group that we are a part of is incredibly supportive. When you're a CEO of an organization, you often don't have that many peers. And so it's really lovely actually to have peers, to talk about the challenges of staff management, to talk about the challenges of working in fundraising or working with boards, to think together about strategies, also to think about how we as women show up to be CEOs. It's the whole other thing, and it's a whole other set of challenges. So to have a peer group to discuss that with and learn from, I think is really wonderful. And then to be honest, also just to meet the women kind of on the New York end, right? Who are all so wonderful and so warm and so caring about what it is that we do. So I really felt very honored to be a part of it.
Well, we are very honored to have you in our collective. Feel very privileged to support the work that you do. I think that an Illuminate Yahel service trip has got to be in our future.
Yes.
So looking forward to that. Thank you so much for this time and sharing your wisdom and all that you do. And we'll all obviously be thinking about you and hoping for the improved situation there shortly.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. It was lovely speaking with you.
You too.
Thank you so much, Donna, for taking the time to share your story with us and your work. I hope that we do an Illuminate trip. And it's really certainly been such an honor to have you in our network. Thank you, Rachel, for leading us through this conversation. We hope that you will visit Yahel's website to learn more about their ongoing work and current opportunities to get involved, like Donna mentioned. Some opportunities include sharing information about their upcoming summer volunteer programs and 9-month fellowship with the young adults in your life, organizing a service learning trip to Israel with Donna, with whatever community that you're a part of, whether it's a synagogue or school or what have you. Donating to their new project that Donna mentioned, working with new immigrants in Israel. We also hope that you will sign up for Illuminate's newsletter to hear about events and updates such as this one. Join our next Crown Jewel conversation on March 7th at 12 o'clock noon Eastern with Rabba Sarah Hurwitz, the co-founder and president of Maharat. We offer these sessions at no cost to you, but if you find value in what we're doing, please consider 2 donations today. The first one to Yahel Israel Service Learning to support Donna and her team's incredible work in Israel, and the other to Illuminate. We also hope that you will save the date on your calendar for May 7th for our annual gala in New York City. We hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you soon.